Hello and welcome to Chapter 8, Securing Information Systems for BADM323. This chapter discusses the need for security to guard information systems and data, as well as technologies used to secure information systems. So what types of threats can harm an information system? Internet security, or the lack thereof, will continue to be a topic of major concern to corporations and countries. Do you know why there is so much attention paid to the internet security issues in the press? Have you ever been a victim of a breach in a company's computer security? We'll discuss some of these topics in the next few slides. So the opening case, you're on LinkedIn. Watch out. Describes several different ways information systems become vulnerable to malicious software. Individual users' computers, their friends' computers, and computers of LinkedIn participating businesses. Because of its huge user base, an easy-to-use website, and a community of users easily linked to dozens of or hundreds of other users, the popular business networking site has become a huge security risk to individuals and businesses. This case also shows that no single approach to securing information systems is sufficient. Businesses must continually upgrade their security software and try to stay one step ahead of hackers and computer criminals. Securing information systems from unauthorized access, abuse, destruction, or tampering of assets requires a combination of training, procedures, and technologies. The cost and difficulty of using all of these must be balanced with the net benefits they provide the business in the form of greater customer trust, uninterrupted operations, compliance with government regulations, and protection of financial assets. However, as the text states, developing a secure password system would only have the cost the company a minimal amount of money, in the low six figures. After the hacking incident, the company faces a $5 million class action lawsuit. As our society and the world itself come to depend on computers and information systems more and more, firms must put forth a better effort to making their systems less vulnerable and more reliable. The systems must also be secure when processing transactions and maintaining data. These two issues, which we addressed in this chapter, are the biggest issues facing those wanting to do business on or expand their operations to the internet. The threats are real, but so are the solutions. So looking at system vulnerability and abuse. As firms become more technologically oriented, they must become more aware of security and control issues surrounding their information systems and protect their resources more stringently than ever before. It's just that simple. This slide discusses the main categories of threats to information systems. Note that when large amounts of data are stored digitally on the computers and servers and in databases, they are vulnerable to many more kinds of threats than when they were stored on a manual form, on paper in folders, or in file cabinets. When data are available over a network, there are even more vulnerabilities. Have you ever lost data on your computer? What was the reason? The hardware, software, disaster, other? On the other hand, digital records are not vulnerable in ways that manual records in a file cabinet are vulnerable. For instance, you really cannot tell who has accessed manual records, or when in a physical file. In a database, file access is monitored unless a hacker has found a way to read records without leaving a digital trail. Information systems are vulnerable to technical, organizational, and environmental threats from internal and external sources. The weakest link in the chain is poor systems management. If managers at all levels do not make security and reliability their number one priority, then the threats to an information system can easily become real. The figure below gives you an idea of some of the threats to each component of a typical network. This graphic illustrates the types of threats to a system's security and the points over the network at which these threats are prevalent. Some problems occur at the client computer, others through the network lines, corporate servers, or in corporate hardware and software. Businesses that partner with outside companies are more vulnerable because at least some data may be less controlled. Partnering companies may not protect information as stringently. Hardware and software safeguards may not be as important to outsiders. Employees of the partnering firm may not view security as diligently as primary businesses. In today's business environment, it's not enough to protect hardware and software physically located within an organization. Mobile computing devices like smartphones, cell phones, netbooks, and laptops add to the vulnerability of information systems by creating new points of entry into information systems. There are over 200,000 applications for Apple mobile computer devices and 80,000 apps for Droid-based devices. Even though most of these small software programs are well constructed, some could potentially threaten corporate networks. If electronic business is to prosper and truly move into the mainstream of commerce, everyone involved, merchants, financial institutions, software vendors, and security suppliers such as VeriSign, has to make security a top priority, starting right now. Security is very hard to get right under the best of circumstances, and just about impossible when it is not the focus of attention. If an industry does not get this right, and fast, it's setting the stage for a catastrophic loss of confidence. This was according to Business Week. In a survey my company carried out last week, security professionals were asked to identify the most common sources of automated worm attacks. Not surprisingly, 3 of the top 4 causes pointed directly at dirty PCs. 43% said employee laptops were the primary source of worm attacks. 34% fingered contractor laptops. And 27% claimed that home PCs connected to virtual private networks, or VPNs, were the guilty parties. This was according to a CNETnews.com interview with John Olstick. 2 of these articles show how long the problem with poor security has existed and how vulnerable computing systems are. Every point of entry into the internet is a point of vulnerability. If you connect to the internet with a cable modem or DSL, you are much more vulnerable to hackers on your home PC than if you connect with a dial-up modem. That's because you are always connected with a permanent IP address, which makes it easier for hackers to find you. The only smart thing to do is to keep your software up to date and include firewall protection. Because distributed computing is used extensively in network systems, you have more points of entry, which can make the attacking the system easier. The more people you have using the system, the more potential for fraud and abuse of the information maintained in that system. That is why you have to make it everybody's business to protect the system. It is very easy for people to say that they are the only one person and therefore they won't make much of a difference. But it only takes one person to let down the necessary safeguards in order for one other person to disable a system or destroy data. It is a difficult balancing act when it comes to making wireless systems easy to access and yet difficult to penetrate. Internet cafes, airports, hotels, and other hotspot access points need to make it easy for users to use the network systems with the 802.11 standard. Yet, because it is so easy, hackers and crackers can easily access unsuspecting users' systems and steal data, or use the entry point as a way to spread malicious programs. The hackers use the war-driving techniques to gain access to wireless networks not only in hotels and airports, but to private businesses and government centers. Wireless networks are vulnerable in the following ways. Radio frequency bands are easy to scan. Signals are spread over a wide range of frequencies. Service set identifiers, also known as SSIDs, are broadcast multiple times and are easily picked up. Rogue access points can be established on different radio channels and divert signals from authentic points. Wired equivalent privacy, also known as WEP, isn't very effective because it relies on user input. This graphic illustrates why wireless networks are vulnerable. The service set identifiers, the SSIDs, identifying the access points in the Wi-Fi network are broadcast multiple times, as illustrated by the orange sphere, and it can be picked up fairly easily by intruder sniffer programs. Have you ever picked up a cold or a flu from another human? Probably. Then you spread it to 2 or 3 other people through touch or association. Those people spread it to 2 or 3 more people each. Pretty soon it seems that everyone on campus or at work is sick. That is how computer viruses are spread. You copy a file from an infected source, use the file, and maybe send it to a friend or associates. The virus is now on your computer and spreads to files other than the original. You then send the same or even a different file to a few friends and their computers are infected. Web-enabled and email-enabled cell phones are now being targeted as a way to spread viruses. It is not just PCs that are vulnerable to virus attacks these days. Now you also have to protect your phone from mobile phone viruses and PDAs too. Advanced mobile phones run the same kind of applications as desktop and laptop computers, and they have multiple wireless connections, so they too get infected by mobile phone virus and spread cell phone virus. There are currently about 100 mobile viruses that can disable a phone or create bills of hundreds of dollars by sending privacy picture messages. The first mobile virus spreading in the wild emerged less than 2 years ago. While this is still a tiny number compared with a personal computer virus, the threat is expected to increase. A different type of malware, called worms, can also destroy data on computers or clog network systems with a software-generated electronic transmission. Worms are similar to viruses in that they can create additional file copies on a computer and generate emails to other computers with the infected file attached. Worms differ from viruses because they do not need human intervention to spread from one computer to another. That helps explain why computer worms spread much more rapidly than computer viruses. Drive-by downloads are malware stored in a downloadable file that you intentionally or unintentionally request from a web source. Trojan horses, they cause problems because they force a computer system to perform unexpected operations, often to the detriment of the system and the user. This type of malware is usually masked in email messages, although it can be stored on websites. We mentioned above that mobile computing devices like smartphones and tablet computers increase the vulnerability of corporate networks because they create new points of entry. Social networking websites like Facebook and websites like the use of Web 2.0 applications also pose security threats. Users assume that every message they get from friends or even well-constructed websites are authentic. Unfortunately, that's a wrong assumption. Facebook has become an easy target for unauthorized users to infiltrate networks and spread malware. Website applications are becoming a magnet for hackers to gain access to users' computers. It is imperative that website programmers and authors create underlying code that properly validates and filters data entered by users. This will help prevent SQL injection attacks that target databases and unleash malicious code. This slide continues the discussion. Not all spyware is damaging to a computer system. It is a popular method for some websites to monitor how users navigate through a site, providing critical information that the web designers and developers can use to improve the site. Unfortunately, some spyware is becoming a preferred method for hackers to install malicious code on computers and allow them to infiltrate an unsuspecting computer. Keyloggers are an example of how spyware programs are used to capture personal or business information from unsuspecting users. Hackers and crackers, those who intentionally create havoc or do damage to a computer system, have been around for a long time. Many companies do not report hackers' attempts to enter their systems because they do not want people to realize their systems are vulnerable. That makes it hard to gather real statistics about the extent of hacking attempts and successes. Unauthorized access is a huge problem, though. In a typical game of cat and mouse, hackers constantly develop new ways to get around security software. Unfortunately, they usually have the upper hand because they can create hacking methods faster than security spyware companies can create, update, or distribute software that blocks them. Users who fail to keep their software updated inadvertently help hackers continue to ply their trade. One security software company is trying a new approach and hope they get the help they need from you. Even as hacking has grown from a way for geeks to impress each other to a means for criminals to steal and blackmail, the strategy for computer security has remained largely the same. Companies and consumers erect the thickest walls they can around their computers so the bad guys cannot get in. Now security experts, realizing they are losing the battle, are ready to try a new approach. They plan to recruit victims and other computer users to help them go on the offensive and hunt down the hackers. It is time to stop building burglar alarms to keep people out and go after the bad guys, says Roland Trollope, Senior Vice President of Consumer Products at Symantec, the largest maker of antivirus software. Symantec will ask customers to opt into a program that will collect data about attempted computer intrusions and then forward the information to authorities. Symantec will also begin posting the FBI's top 10 hackers and their schemes on its website, where customers go for software updates. Next year, the company will begin offering cash bounties for information leading to an arrest. This is according to Cliff Edwards from the Business Week. Some hackers penetrate systems just to see if they can. They are special computer systems that continually check for password files that can be copied, or they look for areas of the system that have been, quote unquote, left open, so to speak, where they can enter the system. Sometimes they do not do any damage, but far too often they destroy files, erase data, or steal data from their own use through cyber vandalism. Other hackers attack systems because they do not like the company. Victims of a data breach at a security analysis firm, Stratford, apparently are being targeted a second time for speaking out about the hacking. Stratford said it on Facebook's page that some individuals who offered public support to the company after it revealed it was hacked may be targeted for doing so. The loose-knit hacking movement, Anonymous, claimed Sunday through Twitter that it had stolen thousands of credit card numbers and other personal information belonging to the company's clients. Anonymous members posted links to some of the information Sunday and more on Monday. Stratford, based in Austin, Texas, said its affected clients and its supporters are at risk of having sensitive information repeatedly published on other websites. The company has reported to communicating through Facebook while its website remains down and its email suspended. Two other methods hackers and criminals use to gain improper or illegal access to computer systems. Spoofing is becoming a common way to steal financial information through fake websites. The spoofed site is almost a mirror image of the real site, and unless the unsuspecting user examines the spoof closely, he or she may inadvertently give out important personal or financial information. Using a sniffer program is a popular way to grab information, as it passes over transmission lines, regardless of whether they are hardwired or wireless. It is almost impossible to detect, and encryption is about the only way to safeguard against it. As companies and organizations expand their business to websites, they are opening another point of vulnerability through denial-of-service attacks. Using botnets to launch distributed denials-of-service attacks is becoming all too common. The hackers seem to enjoy attacking the most popular websites like Facebook and Twitter. According to Elliot Van Berskert in an interview through Wired.com, he says, on this otherwise happy Thursday morning, Twitter is the target of a denial-of-service attack. Attacks such as this are malicious efforts orchestrated to disrupt and make unavailable services such as online banks, credit card payment gateways, and in this case, Twitter, for intended customers or users. We are defending against this attack now and will continue to update our status blog as we continue to defend and later investigate. In a denial-of-service attack, a malicious party barrages the server with so many requests that it cannot keep up, or causes it to reset. As a result, legitimate users can only access the server very slowly or not at all, as appears to be the case here. Denial-of-service attacks are the core of some of the most serious forms of cyber warfare being played out across the world between countries and governments. From Russia to Iran to South Korea, government networks are being targeted through these kinds of attacks. The use of botnets makes it very difficult to determine the origin of the attacks and pinpoint responsibility. The news article below offers an idea of how to help fix problem hackers create. So quoting Associated Press, Lolita Baldar in an interview in 2010 on U.S. studying Australian internet security programs, she states, the government is reviewing an Australian program that will allow internet service providers to alert customers if their computers are taken over by hackers and could limit online access if people do not fix the problem. Obama administration officials have met with industry experts to find ways to increase online safety while trying to balance securing the internet and guarding people's privacy and civil liberties. Possibilities include provisions in the Australian plan that enable customers to get warnings from the internet providers if their computer gets taken over by a hacker through a botnet, a network of infected computers usually controlled by hackers through a small number of scattered PCs. Computer owners are often unaware that their machine is linked to a botnet and is being used to shut down targeted websites, distribute malicious code, or spread spam. Without security, you have no privacy, says Schmidt, who's a White House cyber coordinator. Internet service providers, he added, can help make sure our systems are cleaned up if they're infected and keep them clean. Some of the crimes we have just described are the most popular. Computer crime is a growing national and international threat to the continued development of e-business and e-commerce. When the internet was first created in the late 1960s, the designers intentionally built it to be open and easily accessible. Little did they know, 40 years later, the structure would be the very cause of so much crime and vandalism. It is very difficult for our society and our governments to keep up with the rapid changes in the type of computer crime being committed. Many laws have to be rewritten, and many new laws must be implemented to accommodate the changes. The fastest growing crime off or on the internet is identity theft. Even though identity theft is most likely to occur in an offline environment, once your personal information has been stolen, it is easy to use it in an online environment. The biggest risk for identity fraud is from old-fashioned theft, or your wallet, or paper records from within your trash, and from people who know you. People who are close to you can set up known accounts and have their information sent to a new address. So the fraud goes on longer and it's harder to discover. Several government websites provide extensive information about how to prevent identity theft. The Federal Trade Commission at www.ftc.gov gives you information about what to do if you think your identity has been stolen. Another government-sponsored site is onguardonline.gov. OnGuardOnline.gov provides a practical tips for the federal government and the technology industry to help you be on guard against internet fraud, secure your computer, and protect your personal information. There are many precautions people can take to help prevent identity theft. One way is to scrutinize emails or phone calls that ask you for your information or financial account information. No legitimate financial institution will ever send an email requesting you to supply your account information. That is the number one indicator that the email is a phishing email. You should ignore and delete the email immediately. You can also access www.annualcreditreport.com and receive free copies of your credit reports from the 3 major credit reporting bureaus to monitor the information about your credit and financial activities. Phishers are back and with a vengeance, armed with some alarming new trickery. Those email scammers who try to fool you into typing your username and passwords at faked financial web pages have been around in force since all the way back in 2002. They remain active, though many web users have gotten adept at spotting and avoiding ruses to get their financial account logons. However, after a lull in the start of last year, phishing attacks suddenly spiked 200%, according to IBM's X-Force research team. Phishers are going after logons to webmail, social networking, and online gaming accounts, security experts say. With possession of your webmail, username, and password, cyber crooks can carry out a matrix of lucrative online capers, made all the easier if you just use one of a handful of the same passwords. They can send out emails that appear to come from you to everyone in your address book to try to get them to divulge passwords, and they can scour your email folders for clues for social networks and online banks you use, then crack into those accounts and change the passwords so only they can access them. Other ways your identity can be stolen is through evil twins, based on wireless network intrusions and farming, the use of bogus websites. All of these are classified as computer crimes for which our government is continually passing new laws. Looking at click fraud. All those ads you see on the websites cost the sponsor money. Every time someone clicks on an ad, the sponsor is charged a pay-per-click fee. The fee is based on the popularity of the search words that generated the ad. What if your company is paying for an ad with little or no results traffic on your website? That's what happens in the case of click fraud. A person or software program continually hits on the ad, driving up the advertising fees without any intention of actually visiting the site. The growing ranks of business people worried about click fraud typically have no complaint about versions of their ads that appear on actual Google or Yahoo web pages, often next to search results. The trouble arises when the internet giants boost their profits by recycling ads to millions of other sites, ranging from the familiar, such as CNN.com, to dummy web addresses like insurance1472.com, which displays lists of ads and little if anything else. When somebody clicks on those recycled ads, marketers such as Most Choice get billed, sometimes even if the clicks appear to come from Magnolia. Google or Yahoo then share the revenue with a daisy chain of website hosts and operators. A penny or so even trickles down to the lowly clickers. That means Google and Yahoo at times passively profit from click fraud and in theory have an incentive to tolerate it. So do smaller search engines and marketing networks that similarly recycle ads. Looking at global threats such as cyber terrorism and cyber warfare. As terrorism continues to increase the possibility of physical attacks anywhere in the world, computer systems can be targeted as often as buildings, cars, and trains. Governments realize this and are investigating ways of preventing system attacks or minimizing the damage caused to the vast number of networks that are vulnerable. FBI Director Robert Mueller III warned that the cyber terrorism threat is real and rapidly expanding. Terrorists have shown a clear interest in pursuing hacking skills, he told thousands of security professionals in an RSA conference in San Francisco. They will either train their own recruiters or hire outsiders with an eye toward combining physical attacks with cyber attacks. Al-Qaeda's online presence has become as potent as its physical presence over the last decade. Osama bin Laden long ago identified cyberspace as a means to damage both our economy and our psyche, and countless extremists have taken this to heart. Terror groups are using the internet to recruit, radicalize, and incite terrorism. They are posting videos on how to build backpack bombs and bioweapons. They are using social networking to link terrorist plotters and plans. Mueller also used his remarks to stress that the cyber threat cannot be fought by government alone. He urged companies to come forward and tell authorities when their computer systems have been hacked. Maintaining a silence will not benefit you or your company in the long run.
2 years ago, a computer virus called Stuxnet infected and damaged the Iranian nuclear program. And that may sound like a good thing, but we are now learning this type of cyber attack could also be used against us. Last night on 60 Minutes, correspondent Steve Croft reported on this new cyber warfare battle.
Few people know more about the dark military art of cyber war than retired General Michael Hayden. He's a former head of the National Security Agency and was CIA director under George W. Bush. He knows a lot more about the attack on Iran than he can say here.
This was a good idea, all right? But I also admit this was a really big idea too. The rest of the world is looking at this and saying, clearly someone has legitimated this kind of activity as acceptable international conduct. The whole world is watching.
The story of what we know about the Stuxnet virus begins in June of 2010, when it was first detected and isolated by a tiny company in Belarus after one of its clients in Iran complained about a software glitch. Within a month, a copy of the computer bug was being analyzed within a tight-knit community of computer security experts, and it immediately grabbed the attention of Liam Omerku, an operations manager for Symantec, one of the largest antivirus companies in the world.
As soon as we saw it, we knew it was something completely different.
Steve Croft joins us now. Welcome.
Charlie, good to be here.
Good report. Can you summarize in a simple way how they were able to do this and have that impact on those centrifuges in Iran?
Well, somebody created a virus that was designed to hit one specific target in the entire world, something that had a bunch of a certain configuration of equipment that the computer or the virus was able to determine if it was the right target. This is what it was looking for.
Yeah.
It's one of the most ubiquitous pieces of machinery in the world. It's called a programmable logic computer, and it's just a piece of plastic with some chips in it, and it controls factory floors all over the world. This will tell you what chemicals and what amounts to put into a product that you're making. It'll tell you when to heat up the plant or cool it down. Could be used, for example, to shut off a cooling system at a nuclear reactor. And it was really the first virus to attack this little piece of equipment. And it was after a certain kind of Siemens equipment.
And by doing that, they were able to affect the centrifuges in Iran at a particular place.
Right. What it did was, it essentially, the virus this sits in between the operators of the plant and the machinery on the floor. And what the virus was able to do was able to get in here, rewrite the software, and tell the machines to do something entirely different without the operators of the plant knowing it.
You spoke in your piece, for people who didn't see it, with retired General Mike Hayden, who of course was also former head of the NSA and the CIA director. There's a little bit more of your interview we didn't see last night. We want to play right now.
Do you think it was an act of war?
I would not call it an act of war. Look, given my own background, Steve, I mean, I've got this whole universe of things between peace and war that are called covert actions. I don't think whoever did this considered it to be an act of war. The Iranians have not quite responded to it as if it were an act of war. It's in that space between the two.
If the United States were involved in this, or were to become involved in something like this, how high would the authorization have to go?
You're asking a theoretical question.
Right.
I'm going to give you a theoretical answer based upon my experience in government. Something of this nature gets approved in the West Wing.
General Hayden said a lot of things in which he made space between the fact when he was in government making policy and where he is now.
Yes.
But he knows a lot of stuff.
He knows a lot of stuff, and he knows a lot of stuff that he can't say. And he was president or director of the CIA for George Bush at a time this would have been green-lighted.
What do they fear the most?
Well, I think that they fear somebody using something like this against us. And the thing that's really interesting about it is that this virus, as General Hayden said, it's not like a conventional weapon that destroys itself along with the target. It's out there for people to copy. So you can actually go online and find the formula for making this, the code.
It's the footprints that Cesar, I think you referred
Yes.
to it, or someone in the report did last night. It really is a Pandora's box that now has been opened.
Right. And somebody else could turn around and modify it and use it against us if they can find the way into our computer system.
Go ahead.
I was just, is there any indication that that's being done, or that anything specifically being built on Stuxnet right now?
Well, there's now another virus sort of moving around the world called Dooku that a lot of people think was built by the same people, or or have used the code of Stuxnet. That is also targeting PLCs. It seems right now to be extracting information from the PLCs so that it could be used in another Stuxnet type attack. But this is really an historic thing. I mean, it's going to be a component of war from now on. This was an historic event. And it can be used to disrupt all sorts of things.
The conventional wisdom or the perceived wisdom is that this might have been done by the Israelis, but they could not have done it without U.S. help.
I don't think so. I think that everybody feels that it was mostly a U.S. operation, everybody that we have talked to.
A U.S. operation.
U.S. operation, but obviously there was a lot of intelligence that was picked up on the ground. Somebody knew how this plan operated, and certainly I think the Israelis have proved that they have a bunch of people on the ground there.
Indeed. Thank you.
One place the defense budget is increasing is in computer warfare. Back in 2010, the Pentagon established Cyber Command to wage war and defend America's computer systems. It's a top priority for the Secretary of Defense. We asked Secretary Panetta about that in an interview for 60 Minutes. He was touring the Middle East last month, traveling on his flying command post that's rigged to conduct nuclear war if need be. But the Secretary told us cyber war is one of his biggest worries.
The reality is that there is the cyber capability to basically bring down our power grid, to create, to paralyze our financial system in this country, to virtually paralyze our country. And I think we have to be prepared not only to defend against that kind of attack, but if necessary, we are going to have to be prepared to be able to be aggressive when it comes to cyber efforts as well. We've got to develop the technology, we've got to develop the capability, we've got to be able to defend this country.
Is it fair to characterize your cyber command as currently engaged in battle every day?
Well, you know, that's one of the interesting questions. What constitutes an act of war when it comes to cyber warfare? Countries use cyber as a way to exploit information. I think the Chinese use it as a way to gain information in the business arena. But if a cyber effort were made that in fact crippled this country or paralyzed this country or hit a major grid system, then you have to ask the question, does this constitute an act of war?
Based on the previous video we just watched, this week's assignment for individual participation is answering one of the questions located in the discussion forum online. It can contain one or more of these questions, but make sure you answer one of the questions that's in the discussion forum regarding related to Stuxnet. Alright, that is the end of part 1 for chapter 8. Please be sure to watch part 2 for the continuation of chapter 8. We can complete this discussion. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate contacting me or posting a question in the discussion forum. Thank you for watching this series.